Hello and welcome back or welcome to my channel. For those of you that don't know, my name is Lotte and today I'm going to attempt to support you with answering the penultimate question of year 12 and 13, which is which uni should I apply to? So I know that it can be so tough choosing your unis, especially when you can only pick between 4 and 5, and that's why you need to know as much as possible before you apply and before you press go, because it's going to be 3 to 6 years of your life, and that is a long time to be in one place. So for the sake of this video to flow a little bit easier and to make it easier for you guys, I'm going to split it up into a few different sections. So I'll begin by talking a little bit about my personal experience with choosing a uni, and then I'll give you my top 5 things to consider for UK specific unis, then a little bit for international students applying to UK unis, and then I'll touch a tiny bit on some things to consider for European unis and med school specific unis. So I really hope that this can help a lot of you, and enjoy the video. So I'll take it back a couple of years to around year 11, 12 time. I wasn't 100% set on medicine. I'd wanted to do it when I was younger, and then I went through a phase of being like, oh, maybe I'll do something political or law or English, something along those lines. So at that time, I wanted to apply to European unis, and specifically I wanted to apply to Vienna. Unfortunately, my level of German was atrocious and I couldn't apply to Vienna when I looked into it, because you need a certain level of German. So then I ended up looking at some unis in the Netherlands, and eventually I decided on medicine and ended up only looking at UK unis just because the course is obviously the English accreditation, and that's what worked best for me. So the way I looked at unis was during COVID time, so it was a little bit harder. I'm guessing if you're watching this, it's probably still kind of similar now. I don't know how many universities are doing open days and more interactive things, but for me there was literally none of that. So I used YouTube a lot. I watched day in the life videos at different medical schools just to get a feel for the city and what it was like to live there, really. And then I was lucky enough to get back to England for one summer, which was the summer between year 12 and 13. And I did manage to visit a couple of the cities of universities that I was considering, which was really helpful. And I know most people didn't get the chance to do that and won't get the chance to do that. So I am grateful that I was able to do that, as it allowed me to write down a few more pros and cons of the different places, and then eventually narrow it down to the university that I chose. So I ended up choosing Leeds, Liverpool, Lincoln, which is University of Nottingham, Newcastle for biomed science, and Oxford. Oxford reject. Anyway, YouTube really helped me with making my decision, and it's a big thing I would recommend for choosing your uni and getting a feel for a place. And just generally looking online, looking at the websites, looking at pictures, things like that really helped me. So now that's my personal experience with basically narrowing down the university. I'm going to talk about the main factors that I think everyone should consider when applying to, this is UK specific, but I feel like it really does apply to anywhere in the world. Aside from the obvious that they do your course, I would say that the top 5 things to consider when choosing your uni are location, whether it's city or campus, the kind of campus culture or the attitude of the students there, the reputation, and cost of living. So I'll go into a little bit more detail about this, but I just first wanted to say that I've split up location and city or campus. I know sometimes they can come under the same heading, but I really feel like location is more about practicalities, whereas city or campus is a bit more about the type of lifestyle that you want to lead at university. To begin with, location is absolutely crucial when choosing where you're going to live for the next 3 to 6 years. It's really important not only for practicality, as I said, in terms of being close to friends and family or being close to a train station or airport, but also to suit your personality as well and to facilitate your hobbies. So let's say you're into something like surfing, then you might be better suited down south where it's closer to water and surfing's more popular. And if you're into, I don't know, like downhill mountain biking or climbing, then you may want to be near to a place that's a little bit more hilly. So they're just a couple of things that is important to keep in mind. What sort of societies do you want to get involved in at university? What hobbies do you have or interests that you have that you want to pursue, and what kind of location is going to facilitate that? And not only that as well, but also, are you more of a city person or rural? So are you going to live in a city that's really busy like London or Manchester or Leeds? Or would you rather be somewhere a bit quieter like Kiel, which is a lot more rural? So have a good think about that. Make sure you know what you really want and what you feel like you could live in for an extended period of time. It's really easy to look at a place and think, oh, I would love to live there. So for example, I looked at London and thought, oh wow, I would really like to live there. But in reality, I didn't end up looking into the universities at all, because for me personally, the cost of living was just too much and I couldn't live in a city that was that big. I know some people love that and they thrive in such big cities. I much prefer being in a smaller city, but that's just obviously personal preference, and that's why it's so important to list down what matters to you and what you think you want to get out of a place. So linking on from location quite nicely is the city versus campus debate. Now, I'll be honest, this wasn't something I thought about that much, but in reality, it is so important, and I think you only realise it when you go to university. So Leeds, whilst it does have a main campus, I would say my experience has been more city, because the medical school isn't actually on campus, it's a separate building. So a city university is where you have different buildings dotted around the city, and you kind of exist more in the city and you go to the university, whereas campus is a bit more, everything happens on campus. So you've got a student union, you've got your uni lectures there, you've got your sports facilities, all of that. And whilst Leeds does have an element of that, it does still have buildings around the city as well. So I would say it's quite a nice split. And I'm sure most unis do have a bit of a split like that for certain courses. But I would say a big thing with campus is it's more of like a family feel, like everybody's there, you're always surrounded by students. You know that when you're in the student union building, they're all going to be students. Whereas city is a bit more, you're surrounded by everyone from all walks of life. You've got, I guess, more business people, more people going to work. You're sort of walking together with them, if that makes sense. I think that's a bit of a weird way to describe it, but that's the impression I get. So when I'm walking to the medical building, I'm walking alongside doctors and nurses and people doing different jobs. Whereas if I walk towards campus, I just hit a lamp. When I walk towards campus, I know that everybody going in that direction is all students. So it depends what sort of feel that you want. A really nice in-between of that is when you go to collegiate unis, so Oxbridge and Durham, and I think a couple of others. It's like a city in some way. So you do have certain parts of the university that are based around the city. I don't know how much for Oxbridge actually, but I know in Durham it's more dotted around the city, and then you have your colleges. So like the Oxbridge colleges, you've got different groups and you live with those groups. So then you still have that family feel, but you also have the city feel. So there is some that kind of give you a bit of both. But obviously that's personal preference, whether you want that sort of house college vibe. I think it's a bit more Harry Potter high school, whereas city unis tend to be a bit more, you're sort of thrown in amongst a lot of people from, as I said, all walks. And then another thing to have in mind is the campus culture. I think that's an American term, but I guess it's more the attitudes of students. So what sort of vibe does the university generally give off? So is it known for its nightlife? Is it known for sports? Is it known for being a bit quieter, more academic, that kind of thing? So make sure that you really need to know yourself and what you want from a place before throwing yourself into university that maybe is known purely for nightlife and is very crazy. Equally, most places have a bit of everything, so I wouldn't say it's something that's massively to worry about. But if you're easily influenced and you are going to a place with crazy nightlife and don't think you'll be able to get your head in the books, then maybe that's something to consider. I would say it's not the be all and end all really, because you are going to find people who are similar to you. but it may be easier to find people that are similar to you if you go to a university that generally is known for that thing. So obviously places like Oxbridge are known for being much more academic. Cities like Leeds and Newcastle are known for their nightlife. Loughborough is known for being very sporty. Kiel is known for being quite rural. So try and get a feel for the university lifestyle and attitudes of students, and I would say the best way to do this is not only YouTube videos but also looking at the student room and just searching up the name of the uni, finding out what student life like is there, and reading different blog posts. I'm sure you'll find plenty. If you type the name of the university and then type student life after it, you'll find all kinds of different things. And if you know people at the universities, reach out to them, find out what it's like. I'm happy to chat with anybody who's thinking about Leeds. You can send me an email or you can message me on Instagram. So my medic Instagram is Lotte Stoll with 3 L's, and I'll put a link in the description. So feel free to get in touch if you're thinking about Leeds, or if you know other people from maybe the years above you who have gone to a specific university, then reach out and I'm sure they'll be more than happy to help you. So the next thing that is really crucial when applying to university is the cost of living of a city. As I mentioned earlier, London's cost of living was just unrealistic for me. So I didn't even look in that direction. But I would recommend that before you finalise your choices, you have a think about the kind of budget that you're going to be on every week or every month, and then have a look at a few different websites which compare the cost of living in different UK cities. Have a look on the student room as well for what cost of living is like. So I think there is a couple of websites where if you just type in compare UK uni cost of living, then it should have a couple of things where you can look at tables that compare different prices. I did try and look at a website that I vaguely remember using, but I couldn't find it anywhere, and that allowed me to do a little bit of a comparison. So I'm sure if you have a look, you will be able to find something similar or maybe the same one. Now, something to bear in mind when thinking about cost of living, which I actually didn't think about, was things like societies and facilities. So do you have access to a gym? Do you have access to a pool? Do you have access to clubs and societies for free, or do you have to pay a price for them? So personally, for me, the clubs and societies that I joined, I had to pay a membership fee, and then I have to pay maybe around £2 per class or something. So for my yoga society, for example, that was £5 for the membership and then £2 for every class. So that's also something to maybe factor in if you do know you're going to be doing a specific sport. Have a look at the kind of cost that that's going to be to you, as well as transport. Is the sport facility nearby, or do you need to get a bus? Those little things as well are just worth having in mind. Let's say if you're really stuck between two different universities, and that's a little detail that maybe can help you work out which one is going to be more suitable. Whilst we're on the topic of cost of living, I also just want to mention the importance of having a student accommodation that is right for you. Not only does this fit under cost of living, but it's also crucial for that whole attitudes of students, campus culture element. A really helpful tool that I would recommend for looking for your perfect accommodation is Amber. So Amber is a website that allows you to search for accommodation by city or by university or college. So they cover cities across the UK, in the US, Australia, and across Europe. And the amazing thing about Amber is that you can put in your preferences, like your budget, whether you want to be in a studio or more like student accommodation, so halls or sharing with multiple people. And then it provides you with so many different options, and you can look through the pictures, you can read about the accommodation. And my favorite thing about Amber is that they have an amazing booking policy. So they have a COVID-19 policy, which means you get free cancellations. They accommodate for visa-related uncertainties, and they provide personalized assistance the whole step of the way, free of charge. So I would highly recommend checking out Amber if you just want to have a nosy at the kind of accommodation that might be available in the city that you're looking at. They're ranked really highly among students, and honestly, I wish I'd known about them when I was applying to university, because trying to look through all the different accommodation websites was so time consuming, and I would constantly be trying to scribble down notes And I could have had this website all along where I could have just looked through the perfect accommodation for me. So I will pop my affiliate link in the description, and it would mean a lot to me that if you do decide to book your accommodation through Amber, that you could use my link. Essentially, you click on the link and then you can put in your name and your email, and then you make an account. Moving on to the final thing that you need to consider when applying to unis is reputation. Now, I know people put reputation right at the top of their list of things to consider, but I really hope that after watching this video, you can realize that reputation maybe isn't the most crucial thing. Whilst it is important and it's good to go to a good uni, especially if you want to do something that's maybe research related, so you want to go to a Russell Group uni, I do understand that completely. But I also think it's important when you're looking at the charts for the uni's reputation that you look not only at the overall reputation, but the reputation of the course, the facilities, the teaching, and also student satisfaction. Student satisfaction is so important to consider. So remember that the students are the ones who basically create the ranking for student satisfaction, whereas the academic performance and reputation of the uni is something completely separate. So that's why it's really crucial to listen to the people that are living and existing in the university life. Now, another way to get a good idea of the uni's teaching style and student satisfaction is the student room. That's really, really helpful. Just search up your uni and have a look what students generally think about going there. But there we have it, the top 5 things to consider if you're applying to UK unis. Now, a couple of other things that I would say are really important to just think about when you're writing your list of top unis are the facilities that are available. So things like, do you get gym access? Is there sports fields nearby? Little things like that that will just make your quality of life more enjoyable. And then another thing that is really crucial to think about is if you're really undecided about your course, have a look at Scottish universities. So in Scotland, I believe most of the courses are 4 years, and in most places, the first 2 years don't actually count, so it allows you to explore different courses a little bit. So I believe that you can take, please do correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, I believe you can take maybe 2 or 3 different subjects for the first year and then be more set on your subject in like your second year. So it's almost like you're doing a foundation year, and then most of the time, from what I've heard, it's only the 3rd and 4th year that actually count. So if you're really lost on what you actually want to do, that's just something to keep in mind. Moving on, I just wanted to give a couple of tips to international students who are applying to UK unis. So although I'm not strictly an international student, I wasn't counted as a home student by all of the unis I applied to. So in some of them I was kind of international. In Leeds, I was counted as home. In Liverpool, I was counted as international. So obviously there is a huge difference in price for paying home fees and paying international fees. So of course, something you're definitely going to want to consider is price, and make a list of those, have a look at them, do a bit of research into which unis may be cheaper. And then I would say that the second most important thing is proximity to airports if your family live abroad. So my mum lives between the UK and Abu Dhabi, and my dad lives in Abu Dhabi. So it was important for me to be fairly close to home so that I could fly to Abu Dhabi with my mum for the holidays. And I know that some people obviously are moving to uni without either of their parents. So just making sure that you have access to a train station and you're able to get to an airport. Another really important thing to think about is UCAS. I know a lot of schools don't offer UCAS support, so UCAS can be quite confusing. I think there is a fair amount of information online about UCAS, but please do reach out anytime if you have any questions or need some support on how UCAS works. I know it can be confusing. And then one other thing to consider for international students is that there's a high chance that you've never been to the cities, let alone maybe even the country. So again, using YouTube and the student room is going to really, really help you get a feel for the city and know what it's like to be there. I would also say use Google Earth and just stroll around the streets to get an idea of what the city's like. Those are all things I did, and I found that really, really helpful. Moving on from UK unis, I'm just going to touch a little bit on European unis. If you're here for the med student specific uni application, just skip forward a little bit. If not, then I'm going to give you a couple of tips on looking at European unis. So as I said, I was looking at European unis a couple of years ago, and both my boyfriend and some of my friends go to European unis. So I would say that probably for most people, the biggest thing is looking at the language, making sure that the course you want to do is taught in the language that you speak, whether that be that you want to do your course in French, German, Italian, whatever that may be, or you want to do it in English. So I have a couple of friends that are studying in Italy. Some of them are doing their course in English, some in Italian. Some of them can switch halfway through the course, so that's also something that you need to look out for and consider. I believe a lot of master's courses are taught in English, so again, have a look into that. And then I would say a couple of things are really crucial when looking at European unis is the entrance exams and the actual application process. So unlike UCAS, where you're just doing one application and you're channeled in, most unis, I believe, are completely separate applications. So make sure you look early if you're considering going down the European path, because you may need to do an entrance exam way before you think you need to do it for your UK unis. So just keep that in mind and have a look early on, definitely. And then another thing as well to think about is price. So can you get loans? Is it price dependent on income? So I know my boyfriend's university, you pay different amounts for the uni depending on your family's income. So all of these are just little things that you need to have a look into. I would say for European unis, the most helpful thing is going on the website and trying to make maybe some kind of comparison table, just to get an understanding of, do you have to do an entrance exam? What language is the course taught in? What's the student accommodation situation like? And then, as I've said with all the other things, looking on YouTube and speaking to people that you know who go to those universities. Finally, let's get on to med student specific things to consider. So welcome if you're here, and thank you for sticking around, and well done for enduring on such a tough application process. So there is, of course, with many things in medicine, a couple more things that you're going to have to consider when applying. Now, not only is your course going to be much longer than some other courses, but it's also ranked very differently. The teaching style is very different. So these are all things that you need to be aware of. I'm going to give you 5 things that I think you need to consider when applying to medical school. So the first thing is the teaching and course style. So there are 3 different ways that medicine is taught in the UK. There is the traditional style, which is like 2 or 3 years of preclinical, so lectures, and then your clinical for 2 or 3 years. So these are places like Oxbridge and some of the London universities. And then there is the integrated style. So this is like Leeds, Liverpool, Nottingham, and Newcastle, and a few, I think most of them, to be honest, now. So this is where you do your lectures, but you go into placement alongside. So it's constantly, it's like you're learning a section, then you're applying, learning, applying, all the way through. And then there is PBL and CBL. I think Manchester is the only CBL, which is case-based learning. And then there's a few universities that are problem-based learning. I don't think there's really any difference between these two. But essentially, this is where you are doing a lot more independent work. So you may be given a case study at the beginning of a strand, so it could be like a cardiology case study, and then you have to work through that with a group of people and write answers, and then you have lectures that are alongside that. So it's not like any of these are that drastically different from each other. I think most of them have elements of everything in them. However, it's just some are more, I guess you need to be intrinsically motivated and you're doing more independent work if you're doing PBL or CBL. With traditional, you're more guided and it's more like school. And then integrated is just a balance of both of them, really. But again, integrated varies between universities. So it's something to really look into, because some may be integrated but still have a lot more lectures than others. You can mostly find out about the course and teaching style on the websites, and then again, just talking to people, looking at the student room to see what they think about how it's taught. The second thing that is really important to consider is the ranking system in medicine. So from what I understand, 50% of your ranking is due to the situational judgment test that you complete in your final year of medicine, and the other 50% is the way that you're ranked with your final examinations. So Combined, these rankings basically put you in percentiles against the rest of your year group. And please do correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand, you are then compared against the percentiles of everyone in the country. So the top 10% they get to choose their F1 jobs and get their more preferred location to those who are ranked at the bottom. Now, this is something to really bear in mind if you're applying to very academic unis. So speaking from personal experience, one of my biggest doubts with applying to Oxford was that I don't think I'm as academically strong as some other people who may be applying to that university. And I was quite concerned that, yes, maybe I'd be able to keep up, but I really think I would be kind of average to bottom of the cohort, whereas maybe in a different university, I might have ranked average to higher. And that's just something to bear in mind if you're looking long term, because if you do think that maybe you'll really struggle in a more academic uni, then it's possible that you might thrive more and have a better long-term outcome in a slightly less academically reputable university. So I know that sounds quite harsh, but it's really important to be realistic when you're going to be somewhere for so long. And also, if you're looking long-term, it's just something to bear in mind. Now, the third thing to consider is a little bit more cheerful than that, and that is anatomy and how anatomy is taught. So are you interested in using prosections, cadavers, or doing like iPad anatomy? If you're very squeamish, maybe you don't want to be dealing with bodies, so just have a look at the universities that don't have bodies or dissections. In Leeds, we don't actually do dissections, but we do have bodies, and I'm very happy with that. I am a bit squeamish, but I do still like to see the body. So just work out what you think is suited to you. And then the fourth thing, again, very cheerful, is placement. So how early are you going to be on placement? If it's something that you want to do right away, then look for universities that allow you early exposure to patients and allow you to get on placement straight away. And then the final thing to consider is the medical specific societies. Now, this can make a real difference to your experience at medical school. Obviously, the course is quite intense, so you may not have time for some of the university societies and sports. So have a look to see if the university does any medical student, well, they're not medical student only societies, but they're called like medical netball or medical rugby, or we have a medics climbing society, and it just means that you're going to find more like-minded people and medics, and it allows you to be flexible. And this is something I really like with the medical societies, is there's no expectation for you to turn up every week if you have other commitments, whereas with things like university sports, there can be quite a strong commitment, and they do expect you to show up to practice and to games and things like that. So if you are looking to get involved in things like that, then check out the university websites, and again, Student Room, YouTube, all of those things, and just find out which universities offer those sort of societies. So just to summarize, the important things for medical students to consider are the teaching style, the ranking system, anatomy, placement, and medical societies that are available. Of course, there are so many other things that I could think about, but they are just 5 things that I think have really made a difference to my experience at university. If you can think of any others, please do pop them in the comments below. If you have any questions or just want to reach out or have a chat about anything, then feel free to get in touch anytime. And thank you so much for watching, and all the best with choosing your unis and your uni applications. I know it's a really stressful and tough time, but if you put the time into it and you really consider, then it's going to make such a big difference to your quality of life down the line. Thank you again, and have a lovely day.